Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a groundbreaking National Institute on Aging study that's going to completely reframe what it means to age alone. If you're a guy over 60 living solo, or, if you care about someone who is, this information could genuinely change the trajectory of the rest of your life. We're diving deep into the hard cellular biology of aging alone, and trust me, this is absolutely not what your doctor told you at your last checkup.
All right, let's jump straight into a pretty jarring fact. Men over 65 who live alone, they face a massive 45% higher risk of accelerated physical and cognitive decline. I mean, wow, that's a staggering number when you hear it isolated like that. It's the stark, uncomfortable reality of the data.
But wait, here's the part that usually gets left out of the conversation. Solo men who adopt 5 specific lifestyle practices, they don't just survive. They actually outperform married men their age on nearly every major health metric. We're talking superior strength, sharper memory, and way better emotional resilience. So today, we're counting down these 5 practices, starting from number 5 all the way down to the single most powerful biological habit you can change. Kicking off our biological countdown at number 5, fixing the circadian drift. Let's talk about a clinical case from our source material. Meet Raymond. He's a 73-year-old retired electrician. Now, Raymond was exhausted and just emotionally flat, right? But his blood work, totally fine. So what gives? Well, the problem was that Raymond lived alone and didn't have any external social cues for mealtimes or shared routines. He spent his mornings in dim, indoor light. Because of this, his body's internal clock was basically losing precision, kind of like an old winding wristwatch. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when you live alone without those daily anchors. It's a biological phenomenon called circadian drift. See, after 65, without the scheduling cues of another person in the house, your internal clock literally drifts. Your cortisol spikes at the completely wrong times, your testosterone production drops, sleep deteriorates, and those pesky inflammatory markers rise. Simply missing out on morning light directly deregulates your entire biological rhythm. So, the fix here is to create some biological synergy by stepping outside immediately. You've got to get outside within 90 minutes of waking up and spend 15 to 20 minutes in direct, natural sunlight. And no, sitting by a window doesn't count. Glass actually filters out the specific light wavelengths your brain needs. You literally have to be outside. If you combine this light exposure with some mild physical movement like a quick walk, Stanford research shows it amplifies the circadian benefit by up to 60%. It suppresses your melatonin and triggers that perfect morning cortisol response.
Moving right along to number 4, defeating anabolic muscle resistance.
Now check out the massive gap in these numbers. Research shows that older men actually need 50% more dietary protein per meal to build muscle compared to a 30-year-old. Think about that. Yet older guys living alone consume roughly 31% less protein daily than men living with a partner. I mean, let's be real. Cooking a big, elaborate meal, for one, often feels like way too much effort. But this protein gap, it is directly driving age-related muscle loss. And this leads to a tricky little condition called anabolic resistance. Picture it like a heavy, rusted steel door blocking your muscle cells. You could eat the exact same amount of protein you did in your 40s, but that stiff door just won't budge to let the protein into the muscle to do its job. It's incredibly frustrating. So how do we pry that door open? Well, a 78-year-old patient named George did it when he got to the point where he couldn't even open jars anymore. You have to be strategic. You need to evenly distribute 30 to 40 grams of protein across all 3 of your meals. Seriously, don't just save it all for a massive dinner. And here's a pro tip for some extra synergy. Pair that protein with omega-3s, like salmon or really high-quality fish oil supplement. Those omega-3s directly counteract anabolic resistance because they fight off the low-grade inflammation that messes with your muscle signaling. Coming in at number 3, restoring deep sleep architecture. Here's something wild. Guys lose up to 70% of their deep sleep capacity by age 70. Why is that such a big deal? Well, it comes down to the glymphatic system. Think of it as a sort of biological dishwasher for your brain. The catch? It only runs during deep sleep. If you aren't getting that deep sleep, this system totally fails to clear away toxic proteins, like beta amyloid, which, by the way, are the exact proteins linked to a 36% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. Take Harold, another guy living alone. He was sleeping 7 hours a night, but still waking up completely exhausted. By adopting 3 really specific protocols, he completely restored his deep sleep architecture. First, eat your dinner 2 hours earlier than you normally do. Second, dial that bedroom temperature down to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That specific range is a game changer for enhancing slow-wave sleep.
And finally, pop 300 to 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate about 45 minutes before hitting the hay. It literally flips your nervous system from alert to safe. Down to number 2, preserving fast twitch muscle. Okay, so your muscles have slow twitch fibers for endurance stuff like walking and fast twitch fibers for explosive power. The devastating biological truth here is that older men lose their reflexive, fast twitch fibers 3 times faster than their slow twitch ones. By age 75, some guys have lost up to 40% of them. What does that mean in the real world? It means if you trip, your body simply cannot react fast enough to catch you before you fall. Just look at Walter. At 69, he thought he was in great shape because he walked 4 miles a day. But a tiny, minor trip on a sidewalk absolutely terrified him because he realized his fast twitch fibers were vanishing. Look, walking's fantastic. It addresses slow twitch fibers beautifully, but it does almost nothing for fast twitch preservation. The solution for Walter, and for you, is adding just 2 sessions a week of resistance training, but done with intentional, explosive speed. You lift or push with deliberate force to specifically target and recruit those disappearing fibers. And here we are. Number 1, the biology of loneliness. I really want you to listen to the weight of this finding. An effect size comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sink in. This isn't just about feeling lonely or sad. This is hard, quantifiable cellular biology. A massive meta-analysis found that chronic isolation increases early mortality by 26%. It is literally destroying the aging male body right down at the cellular level. The whole mechanism behind this is called the loneliness transcriptome. Sounds sci-fi, right? But chronic loneliness actually changes how your genes are expressed. It tells your genetic control room to prep for a major threat, shifting your whole body into a state of defense. That means you are constantly burning resources. Plus, it directly attacks your DNA telomeres. You know, those things that act like the protective plastic tips on the ends of your shoelaces? Loneliness accelerates their shortening, which adds the equivalent of up to 8 extra years of biological aging. 8 years! Because men have historically relied on their partners as sort of the social architects of the house, widowers often fall into what researchers call social poverty. Take Thomas, a 77-year-old former engineer. He was fiercely independent, but he was having fewer than 2 social interactions a week. His blood work showed extreme inflammation, the kind you'd expect in a guy a full decade older, and he was losing muscle fast. His cells were aggressively aging, purely from isolation. So we didn't prescribe Thomas a new medication. We prescribed social contact. The bare minimum threshold you need to protect your biology is 3 to 5 meaningful interactions per week. And yes, they have to be in person, on the phone, or over video. Texting just doesn't cut it. Brief, frequent check-ins are actually vastly better than one long, exhausting weekly visit. Why? Because your nervous system desperately requires consistent, regular signals of social safety to finally halt that deadly inflammation response. And that brings us to the ultimate synergy of everything we've covered in this explainer. Social connection isn't just one factor out of 5, it is the entire engine. Think about it. It lowers the stress that ruins your deep sleep. It regulates the cortisol that anchors your circadian rhythm. It motivates you to do your strength training. And hey, it makes eating a high-protein meal a shared, enjoyable experience rather than a chore. So, look, aging alone does not have to mean inevitable decline. You are absolutely not too old to build muscle, to restore your sleep, or to reach back out for connection. The rest of your life can seriously still be your best chapter. So my question to you is this. Which of these 5 actionable habits are you going to change tomorrow morning to rewrite the trajectory of your story?